Welcome to Truth and Lies Radio, a program dedicated to revealing the truth and exposing the lies about the destruction of your freedom and prosperity and what you can do about it. And now, your host, former Washington right-wing activist, international living, banking and asset protection author and expert, and American patriot in exile, David Finzer.
This is David Finzer, broadcasting for the next 2 hours from the Gibraltar of the Balkans, the historic city of Novi Sad along the banks of the beautiful Danube River here in Serbia, on my 5,127th day of voluntary exile in protest from an ever less free America. To comment during the show, you can send me a Skype text message at Truth and Lies Radio, all crammed together as one word, or you can email me at david@truthandliesradio.com. As soon as our new studio is finished, you will also be able to call in toll-free from the U.S. and Canada and join the conversation. Also, remember to check out our Facebook and YouTube pages at Truth and Lies Radio Show. Well, according to the big clock, on truthandliesradio.com's FATCA/Taxmageddon Day countdown page, your taxes will skyrocket and your worldwide financial privacy will expire in 147 days, 11 hours, 42 minutes, and 42 seconds. Well, if I were in the military, I think I would be hopping mad. If I had a relative or a friend in the military, I think I'd perhaps be even madder. The Obama campaign has filed a lawsuit to suppress the military vote in Ohio, in a move that could have an impact on the final results of the presidential election. Mr. Sleazebag Obama's campaign has sued the state of Ohio, the sovereign state of Ohio, to block a measure which extends early voting for members of the military. Remember, a lot of them are a long way away where the mail takes a while. The action brought a quick response from Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine and as many as 15 military groups. DeWine told Fox News on Friday that he found the July 17 action by the Obama campaign, the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party of Ohio, shocking. I could think of a lot of other words that I would use, but you probably couldn't say them on Fox News. The tradition for allowing special circumstances for military personnel in voting dates all the way back to the war between the states. That's over 135 years, people. Republicans traditionally have had a lock on the military vote, and with Ohio being a key battleground state, especially this year, Obama leads GOP challenger Mitt Romney there by only 6 points in the latest Quinnipiac University poll. These military votes could swing the November 6 election to either candidate. As you know, I'm supporting neither candidate, so I can be fair and impartial on this report. And as the Buckeye State is considered one of the key marginal states, a victory for either candidate there could end up being the difference between taking the White House or having to return to somebody else's public housing. The Obama campaign sued Republicans DeWine and Secretary of State John Husted, contending Ohio's two-tiered early voting process violates the U.S. Constitution's guarantees of equal protection of the law. Now, for a president who has violated at least 9 of the 10 amendments in the Bill of Rights, him worrying about equal protection of the law is sort of like Hitler worrying about whether or not he sent his monthly contribution to B'nai B'rith. It is absolutely hypocritical. But it's even more interesting because Ohio is only one of 32 states that allow voters to cast an early ballot by mail or in person without an excuse. In 2008, about 30% of the state's swing total vote, or roughly 1.7 million ballots, came in ahead of Election Day. The great thing about that is those people have made up their minds, and no matter what kind of a blitz either candidate makes in the last 48 hours before Election Day that might sway people emotionally, those people have thought it through and gone to the trouble of going to the election office and voting early. In addition, and this is the part Obama doesn't like, state law allows families of armed forces members and civilians overseas, like me among other people, assuming I would vote, to vote through Monday before an election, while early voting for all other Ohioans ends the preceding Friday. The November 6th election falls on a Tuesday, as always, the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. Now, setting state voting standards has always constitutionally been a state issue except by constitutional amendments. People are not being denied equal protection of the law, and like I said, for Mr. Obama to talk about it is laughable. The Obama lawsuit said that the latter part of the Ohio law is, quote, arbitrary and with no discernible rational basis, and that all voters should be able to vote on those days, and thus the campaign seeks a court order invalidating the statutes. Well, why not just seek a court order invalidating the last part, not the whole statute, not wipe out early voting? You know, Obama just is afraid that the people for whom he serves as probably the worst commander-in-chief in a long, long time are going to vote against him. Now, we're almost out of time on this segment, so I will continue this story when I come back and talk about Ohio's 18 electoral votes and how they might go. This is David Finn. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio, and we were talking about how Mr. Obama, the commander-in-chief of America's armed forces, at least as long as he plays president, along with the Democratic National Committee and the Ohio State Republican Committee, are suing to deprive members of the serving members of the military and their family special extended time periods for them to vote, thereby trying to take away their vote. This is Chicago-style politics all over again. This man, who acts more like a celebrity than a president, also, he reminds me of Nero Caesar. He's busy fiddling while the country's burning. Ohio is important because it has 18 electoral votes, and it's been critical in U.S. politics. In fact, no Republican has ever been elected president without winning the state of Ohio. Obama won the state in 2008 with 51.5% of the vote. But remaining ahead of his Republican opponent is proving a lot bigger challenge for Obama this time around. As I noted earlier, the military vote traditionally votes Republican. Moreover, military members and their families generally tend to vote in much larger percentages than the general public, according to federal election data. Separately, the National Guard Association of the United States and more than a dozen other military groups asked a U.S. judge for permission to intervene and oppose the Democrats' lawsuits. Members of the U.S. Armed Forces risk their lives to keep this nation safe and defend the constitutional right to vote, the military group said in their amicus curiae request. The Obama campaign's and Democratic National Committee's argument that it is arbitrary and unconstitutional to afford special consideration, flexibility, and accommodations to military voters to make it easier for them to vote in person is not only offensive but flatly wrong as a matter of law, the group said. They've asked U.S. District Judge Peter Economos for permission to join the case on the side of the state and to oppose the Obama campaign's request for injunctive relief. The hearing is scheduled for August 15th. All I can say about Mr. Obama and the Democratic Party is shame on you. These men and women are fighting and dying in wars I don't support, but I certainly support those men and women who are out there and you're trying to take their vote away because it is more important for you and your scumbag supporters to occupy the White House than it is to act as their commander-in-chief and protect their interests. You've sent them into this war. You've kept them into this war. Don't blame it on George Bush anymore. You've had 3.5 years to pull them out. It's now all your fault. It's your blood on your hands, you bastard. And now to try to take their vote away, all I can say is I wish you all the good you deserve. Now, it's not surprising that while Mr. Obama is trying to take votes away from the people who are fighting for America, the people, some of the most anti-American people in the world, Hollywood, are raising money for Mr. Obama. Wealthy and connected Democratic Party donors Monday will rub elbows with Dark Knight Rising star Anne Hathaway at an A-list fundraising event for Mr. Obama in Connecticut. The price of the dinner is a mere $35,800 per plate. How many families in the United States survive on less than that? Makes you wonder, is he really in favor of the little guy? Or is that just malarkey that he's trying to get us to buy? Well, actually, it's baloney, and very badly made baloney at that. While he really likes to hobnob with the rich and famous because he likes to be one of them. Anyway, about 50 people are silly enough, demented enough, anti-American enough to show up and slap down almost $36,000 in this fundraiser. There's another one, which is only a mere $500 per person, reception. There's no dinner involved here. This means you get cheap champagne and some chips at the Stamford, Connecticut Marriott, according to the Hartford Courant. Hartford, Connecticut. I've been there. In fact, I was in North Hartford the day the towers went down. Not a pretty place to be stuck for a week, I have to admit. Musician Ben Harper is scheduled to perform at the reception at mogul Harvey Weinstein's $15.5 million estate in Westport. For one night's work in the Nutmeg State, Obama's campaign is expected to raise millions of dollars, which just proves that Hollywood is full of stupid people. You know, my big problem with actors as a whole group is these are people who hate themselves so much they spend all of their life pretending to be someone else. And now, of course, this is even more important because they get to pretend to be important. And even though they are mostly dumb as mud, they're going to get to talk to the president. And then they're going to exchange words about important things about how they're going to make things better. But it's going to be just words, just words, just words. Hathaway and Aaron Sorkin, creators of shows such as The Newsroom and The West Wing, which was a completely skewed representation of the way the White House works, are co-hosting the Westport event. Paul Newman's widow, Joanne Woodward, and Connecticut Governor Daniel Malloy are on the guest list, according to the Hartford Courant. Well, not all is glitter and glitz in the Obama world, however. A number of prominent Jewish Americans have begun to jump ship from Mr. Obama's re-election effort, according to Pravda on the Potomac, the Washington Post. Conservative Post blogger Jennifer Rubin writes about a $6.5 million ad campaign by the Republican Jewish Coalition on buyer's remorse, as well as harsh words from prominent Democrat Aaron David Miller and Nathan Diamond of the Orthodox Union. Of course, Obama is anti-Israel. He's a Muslim. He's not even an American citizen. I would think it would be time that some prominent Jewish Americans should wake up and remember that during the Second World War, during the Holocaust, the Islamists were on the side of Hitler, and the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem kept on his desk a silver-framed signed portrait of Adolf Hitler translated from the German, which said, "To my good friend, the Grand Mufti." Why aren't more Jewish Americans waking up? Well, I guess they are. Former editor of the New Republic, Marty Parrott, says Obama's most vocal Zionist backer in 2008. But now in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Parrott's uploads of the Obama's team's great self-deception that somehow the president's tranquilizing words and theirs would bring honesty and reason to Russia, to China, to the African tyrants, and their biggest bet, to the intersecting orbits of the Arab states and the Islamo-fascist mullahs. And that's a quote, she said. I like that word, Islamo-fascist. I may start using it. So it just trips off the tongue and puts things in the proper perspective. It creates a nice, well, actually it creates a really ugly picture, but it creates a very stark one. Dennis Ross and other prominent Obama supporters have also been conspicuously absent from the presidential campaign. One cannot help but draw a comparison between claims that Obama has been good for U.S.-Israel relations and also Mr. Obama's claim that the private sector is doing fine. I wonder what he's smoking in the White House. I don't think it's Bill Clinton's cigars. If the spinners could be totally honest with fellow Democrats, they would say that as bad as Obama's stewardship of the economy has been, it's better than his handling of the U.S.-Israel relationship, according to blogger Rubin, again, in the Washington Post. Now, talking about stupid Hollywood people, one of my least favorite stupid Hollywood people, Sean Penn. Actor Sean Penn joined President Hugo Chavez at an election rally in Venezuela. Chavez is a dictator. I call him Fidelito, little Fidel. In the last elections, he said the elections reported 65% for him, 35% against. However, the exit polls were exactly the opposite. Anyway, Sean Penn, washed-up actor, showed up at an election rally on Sunday bringing a dash of Hollywood, which obviously means poison, to the campaign as he rode with them atop a truck past cheering supporters. Penn is a friend of Chavez who hopes to win a new sixth term on October 7th, and the military said even if he doesn't, they're not going to let him go. "Thank you very much for visiting us again, dear friend," Chavez said after introducing Penn to a big crowd in the central city of Valencia. Well, when I come back, we're going to talk about Mitt Romney and how he is not taking sides in the Chick-fil-A issue because he doesn't have any principles either. This is David Finzer. I'll be back. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio. To comment during the program, you can send me a Skype text message at Truth and Lies Radio, all one word, or you can email me at david@truthandliesradio.com. As soon as our new studio is finished, you'll also be able to call in via toll-free phone or Skype and join the conversation. Well, we're looking, as we America prepares to choose a president, we're looking for a man of principle. We're looking for someone who has strong beliefs, even if we don't agree with all of them, because I didn't agree with everything President Reagan did. I didn't agree with everything Ron Paul said and believed in, but they were men of Ronald Reagan was, and Ron Paul is a man of strong beliefs who have principles. And then, unfortunately, we have a choice between Obama and Romney. Well, Mr. Romney loses again. He has proved throughout his career that he's nothing he claims to be. He's not a conservative. He's the one who created in Massachusetts Romney Care, which is the basis of Obamacare. He pretends to be a Christian, but he's not. He pretends to want smaller government, but he doesn't. Mr. Romney is, frankly, a politician, a liar, who thinks he has some kind of divine right to run America. And he has no more right to run America, and no more, I don't think he has any more moral value than that vicious, evil man that's sitting in the White House right now. Perfect example. While Chick-fil-A's Dan Cathy may well be a Romney supporter, the reverse is certainly not true. The Republican presidential candidate, Mr. Romney, says he wants nothing to do with the Chick-fil-A controversy and declined to defend the embattled fast food chain. At a Friday press conference, Romney, when asked about efforts to stop the restaurant from opening in several cities because of its stand in favor of traditional marriage, said, "Those are not things that are part of my campaign." What is it? His campaign is like a Groucho Marx comedy routine. If it's not part of the script, you don't run it. It just makes no sense to me. He says he's a conservative. He says he's a Christian. His own church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which most evangelicals and Orthodox and Catholics do not believe are even Christians, but they claim to be anyway. They don't believe in same-sex marriage. But Mr. Romney says it's not part of my campaign. That was like Geraldine Ferraro and Teddy Kennedy saying, well, personally I'm opposed to abortion, but. Well, in the English language, but usually means everything I've said up to this point is a lie, and now I'm going to tell you the truth. If Mr. Romney has to dodge taking a stand on issues while he's running for president, how can we trust him to take a stand on important issues if he were to be elected president? How can our allies trust him? How could Israel? He's just been on his European tour where he managed to offend America's not oldest ally, but certainly strongest ally for years, the British, by mouthing off about the Olympics. Of course, he and the Mormons did such a good job of running the Olympics in Utah, it was a huge scandal. So I guess the British have managed to do it without a scandal being involved. They just got, a few things, a little bit of grain, little bits of sand in the work, shall we say. But he managed to really torque off the Brits. Then he goes and has a secret meeting with a bunch of people in Israel, which of course just stirs up the wrath of all of the racist, anti-Semitic Jew haters, Jew baiters, the neo-Nazis that try to infiltrate and poison the right, and I think in many cases are really financed by the hard left. We found when I was in Washington in the 80s, we found absolute evidence of that some of these anti-Zionist, supposedly hardcore right-wing nut groups were indeed funded secretly by hardcore left-wing groups to discredit and destroy the right. Mr. Romney is as limp as a dish rag. He doesn't stand for anything except getting elected. And if we compared everything he said in one place to everything he said in another place, we'd find that he's on both sides or 3 or 4 sides of every issue. Well, a man who's not running for president has some things to say. Charlie Daniels, the guy who's behind one of my favorite pieces of music of all time, The Devil Went Down to Georgia, which I think should be the official theme song of this presidential campaign. The devil went down to Georgia looking to make a deal. He was in a bind. He was way behind. Yep, well, I think that's what both of the candidates are doing, looking to make deals. WorldNet Daily did a great interview with Charlie Daniels. Charlie's 75 years old, but still has something to say. Of course, everyone knows him as a famous country singer. He says there's a move afoot to change life in America into something totally European. I've heard that so much I'm getting sick of it. European socialist thing, says country music legend Charlie Daniels. But it's that dag-blame truth, and it don't work. It never has worked, and if America goes that way, America will never be America again. In my 75 years on earth, it's never been as clear as cut as it is now, Daniels said. We're either going into socialism where part of the people work and the rest of them don't, and the ones that do will be taxed to death, or I got the point where I don't trust politicians anymore, but hopefully the other side represents, let's put America back to work. Let's reinstill the work ethic back in people. You cannot enforce socialism without some force, Daniel said. It's very top-heavy society, and every society that's ever tried it has fallen because you finally get to where there's so many people, you cut out the work ethic, you make people think they have to be dependent on government for everything. It's a mindset. Daniels brought up the recent controversy about Chick-fil-A restaurants as an example. To me, that tips off where these guys are coming from. If you don't agree with us, we don't want you in our town. We don't want you in our country. This is not about gay marriage. This is about being America, about people being able to stick to their deeply held religious beliefs and not to these people trying to put them out of business. This is what it boils down to. Are these people trying to shut up everybody who doesn't agree with them? Unfortunately, Charlie, the answer is yes. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio. They're not going to shut me up. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio. You know, sometimes broadcasting here from Serbia, I wonder who is listening out there. And apparently, Truth and Lies has a bigger international reach than I thought, because I have an email from Brent in Turkey. Now, Turkey isn't too far away from Serbia, but it's a long way from the United States. It's from Brent. Hello, my friend. You freedom fighters are too much. I found you only about 2 months ago, and I've listened to every past show. Thank you, my dear friend. I was in the Patriot movement back in the late 80s. I left America, he spells it with a K, I understand why, because I knew what was coming. I've lived in Turkey for over 11 years. I'm 52 years old. Getting a long-term visa is easy here, and getting citizenship here is available after 3 and 5 years, but knowledge of the system can be important. I'm not anywhere near your intellect, sir, but I'd love to correspond with you if you'd like. I would like to say thank you for your time and efforts. I love your show and your voice and your special interest in us humans. With respect, Brent from Turkey. Thank you, Brent. I had to cut your email down a little bit because it was a little almost embarrassingly flowery, but I thank you very much. I do try to do a good job of letting the chips where they lie and telling the truth. You know, after reading about what Mr. Obama has done and talking about it and reading about the complete lack of spine Mitt Romney has, I have to ask myself and ask you some questions. The first question is Ronald Reagan's famous question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? But don't stop there. I want to ask you another question. Are you better off now than you were 8 years ago? Because 8 years ago you had George Bush. Is America better off since 9/11 and George Bush turned into a complete fascist and America became a police state, or are you worse off? Are you making more money or are you making less money? Do you feel safer or do you feel like the world's going to hell and there's danger? Are you comfortable with the fact that the Russians are going to put a naval base in Cuba and probably Venezuela? Are you comfortable with the fact that Red China is building up the possible reserve currency of the next 50 years is going to completely destroy the American dollar? Are you comfortable with the fact that the American dollar is worth nothing? Are you comfortable with the fact that the American dollar isn't even printed by the American government but by the big banks? Are you comfortable with the way your tax dollars are spent? Are you comfortable with the way the people who represent you? Are you happy with the system? Well, then, if you are, then you have two choices in November. You have one that is a little more left-wing and one that's a little more right-wing, but they're both socialist, corporatist, fascist, statists, big government people who think that they know better than you and I and want to tell us how to run our lives. And if you really think that the government's doing a good job, or even that the government and its currently exists can be saved by one of these two, then vote for them. If you're going to vote for Obama simply because you're black and he's black, then I feel sorry for you. If you're going to vote for Romney simply because he's white and you're white, then I feel sorry for you. If you're going to vote for either of them because you can find any principles in which you believe and you agree with them, then I don't feel sorry for you. I think you ought to be institutionalized, because if you can find a principle among them, you're delusional and need to be in a rubber room. It seems to me, I saw an ad put out by the Libertarian Party with Gary Johnson saying, "Come be libertarian with me." Now, as you know, I'm not entirely comfortable with the Libertarian Party. I do believe there are times when government should proactively intervene to stop impending dangers. I do believe that there's a time for a military presence. I don't believe that you can abolish government, but I believe, like George Washington, that government is like fire, like pure force. It is a useful servant, but a fearful master. Most of all, I believe in what Ronald Reagan said, that our goal ought to be the greatest degree of individual freedom consistent with an orderly society. Do you think patting down 82-year-old ladies in diapers by the TSA is consistent with individual freedom or helps in an orderly society? Do you think the naked scanners help with that? Do you think the government listening to all of our conversations, do you think secret courts are consistent with that? Do you think all of our laws being made by this elite in Washington, where they go in and destroy people's dinners by pouring chlorine over them, where they have invaded admittedly wacky but nevertheless church groups like in Waco and in other places, do you think that's the job of your government? Are you proud of where your tax money's going? If you're not, maybe it's time to make a change. Now, I believe that it's a mistake to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and that's been my biggest argument against the libertarians for all these years, that most, or many libertarians at least, would give up getting 90% because they couldn't get 100%. I don't think that's necessarily the case now. I think the point has become, America has reached the point where it's hanging by a shred, where the American Republic, the carcass of the American Republic with just a slight breath of life in it, it's on the gibbet. The noose is around the neck of the American Republic, and it's being smothered to death, and its body is swinging slowly back and forth and back and forth. And yet there are still people trying to breathe life back into America. And the people that I see are doing that are people like the Tea Party movement. And the people like the Libertarian Party. We have no chance of turning the Democratic Party around. They are so completely controlled by the left that I don't think I can find anything that they do with which I agree. Now, I can find scores of things, maybe hundreds of things with which I disagree with the Republican Party, and certainly scores of things with which I disagree with the Libertarian Party. The Libertarians have no chance under the American political system of winning an election. What they do have a chance of doing is punishing the Republican establishment for stealing the election from Ron Paul. Because I am convinced, based on everything that I've watched, that in fair caucuses, in a fair vote, Ron Paul's name at the very least would have been put into nomination in Tampa, and it would have gone past the first ballot. I lost a $20 bet over that. I don't regret that bet, because the facts, I think, were on my side. The problem was the power was on the other side. So I urge you, first of all, to think about whether it's moral to vote for someone who's evil simply because he's the lesser of two evil. This is like a choice between Hitler and Stalin. What do? You say, I refuse. I vote no. I will not I will not play patsy to you. I will not be scared by either of you into voting for one of you, because otherwise I throw my vote away. I encourage you in the presidential election to throw your vote away if that's what you really think. I encourage you to vote your conscience. And I think if you look at Gary Johnson, the Libertarian Party, and I'm sure there are other right-wing parties out there, the Natural Law Party, etc., you're going to find one of them with which you agree hugely more than Mr. Romney or Mr. Obama. And if you really believe that you're a free American, then cast your vote for that person for president. And then worry about voting for a good Congress that can block either of these idiots from doing too much more damage to America. America is at its last breath. This may be the last election America gets to have. I mean, we are facing serious, serious crisis in America, and it's going to be up to you to decide whether or not the American Republic survives. Now we're at the top of the first hour, but when I come back, this is Money Monday. Mike Gard, the CFO of Capital Conservator, will be joining me, and we'll be talking about economic matters. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio. I'll be back in about 6 minutes. Join me.
Welcome to Truth and Lies Radio, a program dedicated to revealing the truth and exposing the lies about the destruction of your freedom, and prosperity, and what you can do about it. And now, your host, former Washington right-wing activist, international living, banking and asset protection author and expert, and American patriot in exile, David Finzer.
This is David Finzer broadcasting for the second hour from the Gibraltar of the Balkans, the historic city of Novi Sad along the banks of the beautiful Danube River here in Serbia on my 5,127th day of voluntary exile in protest from an ever less free America. To comment during the program, you can send me a Skype text message at Truth and Lies Radio, all crammed together with one word, or you can email me at david@truthandliesradio.com. As soon as our new studio is finished in the next couple of weeks, you'll also be able to call in toll-free from the U.S. and Canada or Skype and join the conversation. Also remember to check out our Facebook and YouTube pages at Truth and Lies Radio Show. According to the U.S. debt clock, the total U.S. national debt is $15,946,527,000,000, which amounts to $139,760 per taxpayer. Of course, the gross domestic product is continuing to lag more and more. It's roughly $700 billion behind the U.S. debt, which means America's bankrupt. It would take every bit of all the goods and services produced in the United States in a year to pay off the debt. That's without anybody eating, drinking, living, having electricity, or anything else. But when you compare that to the real total U.S. debt, then it's just, the number's incredible. It's beyond my comprehension anyway. $56,958,889,000,000, or $181,341 per citizen. Like I keep on saying, America's broke and nobody wants to admit it. Well, today is Money Monday, and that means that Michael Gard is our co-host for today, our economic co-host. Michael is the CFO of Capital Conservator, and he's here to enlighten us all on things economic. Hello, Mike.
Hi, David. It's great to be here.
And I admit it was the $20 debt, the $20 bet I mentioned in the last hour. I lost it to you about Ron Paul.
Thank you very much. I was the recipient of that $20. You know, I was slighted all over that first hour because you had the letter, the email from Brent in Turkey, and you said that there were parts of that email that were cut out. I'm sure all the glowing things he had to say about me were some of the things you skipped over.
Well, he said except for the short guy who wasn't so good.
How would he know I was short? This is a radio program.
Anyway, Best Buy pops up on the dubious ex-chairman's $24 to $26 million takeover offer to drop once again. The company, which is best known as Amazon's physical showroom, aka Best Buy, is in play once again. This time on yet another highly dubious speculation of a takeover by the company's founder, Richard Schultz, who has offered to take the company private at $24 to $26 a share. So far, so good. The problem? A highly confidential letter by Credit Suisse, meaning zero fixed financing is in place. Well, Mike, what's the scoop on this one?
Well, actually, it's a highly confident letter, not confidential.
Excuse me.
It was a letter that he provided for the board. Now, Richard Schultz is the former. He was the founder of Best Buy. Now, I love Best Buy.
Okay, wait a minute. So it was a letter. It was a letter saying, "Yeah, we're going to do it."
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that we're going to do it.
Right? That it's going to get done.
Right. We are highly confident that this is going to get done.
See, I thought it was a typo.
Now, this is one of those things that has to be interpreted, much like, when you were talking with
British
Ollie.
English.
Yes, that, certain words mean certain things, but they don't always mean what you think they mean in English, right?
What's highly confident mean?
Highly confident means we have no idea if anyone's going to come forward and pay for this, right? Now, the whole deal here is that Richard Schultz, the former founder, and Best Buy is a great company, right? The stores are fantastic. You go in, you have all for a guy, this is like heaven. It's electronics. Everybody knows Best Buy.
Actually, the last time I was in, they were incredibly rude to me.
Well, I think that's kind of unusual.
Okay.
But any store could be different. You could have somebody on a bad day. You don't always have. But anyway, they've had some problems now with the economic downturn, and now, of course, electronic equipment, DVD players, CD players, whatever, they're treated more like a commodity now. So it's very hard to make money on these things. So that's why they're always trying to push their protection plans and their insurance programs. But Richard Schultz is the one who founded this company, a big box retailer, and he is now developing what he's calling a management buyout of the company. So we'll go over that in a minute.
Well, you've got about 25 seconds. So
that's not enough time.
That's not enough
time.
No,
this is a complicated issue.
Okay, so he's running up the shares of the market.
Well, yeah, in a nutshell, but again.
Okay, we'll talk about that when we come back.
Right.
Everybody knows Best Buy. I really did they were really nasty to me when I was in there last time. I simply asked one of the employees to get out of the way because I couldn't get through with my wheelchair.
Were you playing the PlayStation and some kids were trying to play?
No, it wasn't, in fact. It was because I was white and the employee was black and he was a racist, actually. Anyway, this is David Finzer with Mike Gard for Truth and Lies Radio. When we come back, we'll have some snappy patter, and we'll snap about Best Buy again until Mike makes me understand this. Stay tuned. We'll be back in 5 minutes. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio, and it's Money Monday, so my economics co-host, Michael Gard, the CFO of Capital Conservator, is joining me, and he's trying to make me understand all of this stock market stuff, and he's talking about Best Buy, and I heard words like pump and dump, and I thought he was talking about sewage, and maybe he's talking about economic sewage. I'm not sure. Mike, go ahead.
Of a variety, yeah, sure. Well, all right, the long and short of it here is Richard Schultz.
That's you and I, the long and short of it.
The long and short. I'll be the short part of that. Richard Schultz was the founder of Best Buy, right? Former chairman, just recently stepped down, but he still owns 20% of the company, right? He owns 20% of the stock. And now he's talking about making a management buyout offer of Best Buy. Now, Best Buy at the time is trading around $18, $17 a share, okay? It's just bouncing around, right? He comes through last week, and he makes this offer. He says, you know what? We're thinking about buying the company at between $24 to $26 a share, right? Which is 40% higher than what it's trading at now. So why on earth would somebody make that kind of offer? Well, first of all, if he wanted to try to take over the company by getting 51% in a hostile takeover, the demand on the shares would drive the price above that, he thinks. That in theory, right? So he says, we're just going to go ahead and nip it in the bud. We're going to offer 24 to 26. I've got Credit Suisse Bank who's given me a letter saying that they are highly confident that we can raise the capital to make this offer, right? And that's exactly what the letter from Credit Suisse says. We're highly confident, right?
No promise, though.
But here's the thing, right? In parlance of executive boards on Fortune 500 companies, highly confident means we don't have a clue, right? We think it's possible. It's not impossible, right? That's about as much as it means. So
it's a wag, a wild ass guess?
Well, sure, but here's the thing: it doesn't really matter. Is that really what he's going for here, or is he trying to float rumors? Because this is very public when he makes this offer. Is he floating rumors out there that Best Buy stock is going to be going up and that people are going to get $24 to $26 for their shares? Because, see, that would make the market go, hey, we can jump in now at 18, and then when the buyout comes through, we'll make a quick 25%, 33% if it goes to 24. We'll make 33% return on our money in a short period of time, driving the stock price up. And theoretically, you could drive it all the way up to $23 a share, right? Because people are looking at selling at 24. So that would be the pump part of the pump and dump scheme. So, and he could be selling his shares 20% into the market. The SEC rule says that he would have to notify people that he is selling his shares or sold his shares after the fact. So perhaps that's what he was doing. It would be a very big pump and dump scheme. Now, we've seen this kind of thing done on companies of this size before, or near this size, but usually it's the other way around, where somebody floats negative rumors about a company. A few years back, Overstock.com, there was a guy who did these infomercials at night. I think they called them bajingos or something. It was like some trading platform to sell stock. And he floated rumors that Overstock was going to go out of business. Now, of course, everybody having gone through the dot-com bubble before was already wary about dot-com type companies. This guy was floating rumors that Overstock was about to go under. And Overstock's price took a huge hit, and there were all these put options being bought on Overstock, and the guy got in serious trouble with the SEC. So the question is Schultz actually thinking about buying Best Buy, or is he just trying to dump his shares for a higher price? Because Best Buy has $1.7 billion in debt that they have to refinance. So maybe he knows that Best Buy isn't going to make it at all. This could end up having the opposite effect.
Well, but if he's doing it publicly, doesn't that put him in danger of prosecution or at least a lawsuit by the SEC?
Well, if it is shown that his efforts are subterfuge,
spurious,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that could bring in Credit Suisse too. I mean, then they could,
Credit Suisse isn't,
well, they're crooked anyway.
I would say they're not, a stranger to being in trouble.
Right. Yeah, but you'd think that after being bitten by the United States as badly as they have been, they wouldn't be coming back this soon.
It's a big company. They have different people who are shy. Certainly the people who are, convicted or, accused of helping tax evaders in Florida are a little bit shy now. But this is a completely different branch of the company. So who knows? But I found it very interesting that this could actually end up having the opposite effect. And sure enough, I mean, according to the article we were reading, and I just looked today before I came on, the share price for Best Buy is down to about $17 a share. So it's actually below where it was when this whole thing started. So it might be having the opposite effect. People are thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead and go, oh. And now the opposite direction. It's almost like reverse psychology.
Okay. So we may be seeing the demise of Best Buy.
It's possible.
Well, like I said, they were nasty to me last time I was there, so, it's sort of like you get 1 or 2 chances with me, and that's it.
But that was just one. I mean, did you have another bad experience?
No, but I will. How many times have I been in Best Buy in the
well,
last
I know you don't watch
14
movies.
years?
I mean, we've already had that, discussion.
Yes.
You haven't seen a movie since what, 2006? I think.
I watched 2 movies over the weekend. I watched talk radio.
Talk radio. Right.
And then to cheer myself up after that, I watched Schindler's List.
My favorite part of Schindler's List is when Schindler turns to Amon Gert and says, I don't have any money, but what I do have is a certain set of skills. Yeah, see, I say that because David has not seen a movie since 2006, so he doesn't know the movie Taken, and he doesn't know how just totally badass Liam Neeson is in that movie, and that's a quote from Liam Neeson. But of course, all movie references are lost on David Finzer.
Well, when we have movie Freaky Friday, then you have to participate. Okay?
Gladly.
Okay. So anyway, have we beaten this?
Yeah, we're done with Best Buy.
Okay. Now for the Draghi, the head of the ECB. Alas, the devil's in the details for Europe's latest attempt at financial alchemy. If you remember alchemy, that's when they used the philosopher's stone to change lead into gold. It didn't work then, it doesn't work now. Much to the investment world's apparent dismay yesterday, it turned out the ECB's Draghi had nothing very specific in mind when he pledged last week to defend Europe's monetary union by any means necessary. See, Kyle.
Well, what's funny about it, this would be like me guaranteeing Austria's independence. I mean, I've never even been to Austria, right? Draghi has nothing to stand on here. He's saying, but what he's doing is he's mimicking Ben Bernanke, who can say stuff like this and can actually back it up because he's the chairman of the Fed. The chairman of the ECB does not have that kind of power because he's got all these member states to deal with, and they can all veto it. And there's Germany back there going, what? What are you talking about? You can't do that, right? So there's just no way he would be able to back it up like he thinks he can. So he's even started to backtrack on his words already. But it did work briefly because the market's balanced. It's like, oh, look, the ECB is going to, prime up the pumps and give us more money. That's fantastic. But again, it's just short-lived because everybody realized that Germany is just not interested in bailing out everybody in Club Med,
Well, what I wonder is, do any of the people in the so-called European project understand that there is no money, that they don't have any money, that there is no real money?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Germany does have some money. And Draghi does have some power because as Germany also floats a budget deficit every year as well. Now, it's not anywhere near as big as Spain or Italy or Greece, right? But they do have a deficit. So if all of a sudden one of these other Club Med states fails and people start to think, well, gosh, those people owed a lot of money to Germany, Germany's in trouble, maybe people wouldn't want to buy German sovereign bonds. And if people don't want to buy German sovereign bonds, those same Germans are going to go crying to the ECB saying, oh, please buy our bonds.
Well, isn't Germany just now really recovering from the one-for-one swap of Ostmarks and Deutschmarks after
I thought you were talking about the Weimar Republic. They're just now recovering from
No, but seriously, after the reunion, they swapped Ostmarks for Deutschmarks one-for-one.
Relatively speaking, they are just now, yes, getting over that relative to the rest of the continent.
Okay, so 1991, 2001, 2011... 21 years later?
Well, to be fair, I mean, in the late 90s, I think that they had some good recovery times, but then 9/11 and all that stuff hit and the economy shrank. But, yeah, they're doing better now, but...
You'd think they would have learned after the Ostmark fiasco.
Well, they're the ones who want to keep the ship afloat, or at least the powers that be want to keep the ship afloat. Most of the population in Germany is ready to cut bait.
Yeah, well, the German elite, the German population didn't want to start World War I or World War II either, but the German elite certainly did, and they took them into it. I mean, this seems to me like, what did von Clausewitz say? War is just politics by another...
I thought it was like the last round of
diplomacy. Politics by other means,
right.
or diplomacy by other means.
Right.
Well, it seems to me that that's what we're looking at is Germany, and previously it worked better because they had France on their side with Sarkozy, and so it was forgive the expression, a cozy relationship. And now with Hollande, who's just crazy.
It was a Mercozy relationship.
Yes, it was a Mercozy relationship. That's right. Well, anyway, we will continue talking about the European Union when we come back. This is David Finzer with Michael Gard for Truth and Lies Radio. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio, and I'm here on Money Monday with our economic co-host, Michael Gard, the CFO of Capital Conservator. Well, Mike, I guess we've agreed that just like in World War I and World War II, with the European Union, the elites in Germany are in favor of it, and the people are not so much in favor of it, but are just so used to following orders from der Führer that they are going along and starting to fight back, maybe.
Well, you got what you have is an interesting contrast with the ECB and the German political machine. And, it's been a fine line that the German politicians have had to walk for some time now, because they want to keep the Union, the EU alive, but they don't want to bail out Greece. And the people really don't want to bail out Greece and Spain and Italy. So the politicians, they're having to say one thing and do another. I know that's really hard for politicians, but that is what they've been doing. But the people's voices are now starting to yell out in unison. It's not just the left wing or the right wing that's having problems. It's kind of everybody.
Well, I, coming from a German-Swiss background, I understand a little bit of the Germanic mind, and, there's this sense of alles muss in Ordnung sein, everything has to be in order, and, the problem is they think they're doing the right thing by imposing order on Europe.
Right, because the southern states certainly need order. And that's what they're almost like, it's like, but we're giving you this order. You should be thankful.
And they don't want it.
And the Italians are like, ciao, baby.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So some of the newspapers from across the spectrum, I guess.
Across the political spectrum. Okay. We got from
Der Spiegel,
right?
The Mirror.
It says Germany has long been wary of ECB bond purchases, right? They talk about the bond purchases of the southern states, sovereign states, and opposition has only grown since the Frankfurt-based central bank largely ceased buying sovereign bonds last year. So they're not for it, right?
Okay.
Then you have the center left.
Süddeutsche Zeitung, that means Southern German newspaper.
Right, so that'd be like from the Munich area, right?
Probably mentioned,
right?
Yeah.
It says the greatest challenge for the ECB head Mario Draghi is to make it clear to the people of Southern Europe. See, they're trying to tell Mario Draghi what to say, right? He should make it clear to those people that he will only help them if they continue to make radical reforms to their economy.
You must be reasonable or else.
Right. On Thursday he chose a clever dual strategy. He spoke of the possibility of bond purchases and other measures, but only if the governments in question fulfill certain conditions. In other words, there's no free money.
Right.
Right. So that's the center left.
But they keep on giving them free money.
Right. Well, here's the thing, right? Everybody knows everybody's lying. Everybody in the room knows, right? The Italians and the Greeks go, yes, we're going to implement strong austerity measures. We're going to tighten the belt, right? Everybody knows they're lying, right? And then the Germans or the ECB gives them money and says, okay, here's the money. This is kind of like when you have the wayward child, right, who's telling you, Dad, can I borrow $10? You know he's not going to pay it back. But you say, okay, you pay me back this money. You know he's not going to pay it back. He knows he's not going to pay it back, but there's this illusion that's going to happen somehow. That way everybody can feel better about the process.
So Italy was probably equally poorly governed under the Borgia popes, but not worse.
Well, I've been watching the Borgias, as you know.
Yes.
And yeah.
About the same.
About the same.
The more that changes, the more it stays the same.
They might have had more sex back then,
okay.
Based on the miniseries that I'm watching.
Okay, well, okay. I always said Italy is the world's largest organized anarchy.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it.
Okay.
So we also have the center right.
Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. Frankfurt, of course, is the financial capital. Allgemeiner means something like
north,
for everybody,
right?
and
So
Zeitung is newspaper.
Munich in the south and Frankfurt up in the north.
Right, and they're talking about Frankfurt am Main, not Frankfurt am Oder. There are two Frankfurts in Germany, but this is the financial capital.
And what's the other one?
Am Oder.
What's that one?
That's in East Germany.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Okay, am means on, and it's the Frankfurt am Main. You'll sometimes see A/M, and that means am Main. It means it's on the Main River.
Oh, that makes sense.
And am Oder is A/O.
Gotcha.
Because it's on the Oder River. Anyway, go ahead.
Right. The center-right paper said the actual mandate of the ECB, price stability, has faded into the background during the crisis. So far, the ECB has taken its duty of combating inflation seriously so far. So they're not a fan of the printing of the money and ramping inflation up either, right? So you got center left, you got center right, and then of course you have the conservative daily,
Die Welt, which means the world.
right? And they say the ECB would be well advised to give way to politicians this time. With his grandiose announcement that he would save the euro at any price, Draghi has already come dangerously close to a red line that a central banker should never cross. Right? So they're playing hard too. The border between fiscal and monetary policy, which has already been blurred to the point of being unrecognizable, would be completely nullified if the ideas being discussed were to become a reality.
Of course, there's a certain amount of what can I say? It's sort of like what goes around comes around, because the Germans were the ones who drove this European project and insisted on the single currency, not a common currency, insisted on the political union and everything else. The fact that it's coming back and biting them in the butt more than
makes you giggle,
more than anybody, I think it's great, and it's sort of the moral equivalent of the bombings of Berlin in the Second World War.
Well, you know, it's every empire ends up expanding to a point, and then it has to maintain the empire, and it's the cost of maintaining that empire that makes them eventually crumble when they overreach. I mean, it's happened with every empire in history. It's happening with the American empire now. With all the bases around the world, we just can't be the policemen of the world. You cannot put that much productivity to waste.
So it's the geopolitical equivalent of the Peter Principle.
Yes, you rise, you get as far as you can until you collapse.
Okay.
Right, that's absolutely correct. We also have the Financial Daily.
Handelsblatt, which is business notes, basically.
Business notes. Because politicians have failed in their fiscal policies, they are leaving it up to monetary policymakers. Certainly it is easier to wash their hands of it, but this won't help. Governments must govern. They have to figure out how much solidarity there is and how much they can get their voters to suffer. So again, they don't want the ECB to print.
But it shows exactly where the minds of the business community is. Governments must govern. Alles muss in Ordnung sein.
We need strong leadership.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's gonna, and the problem is, Europe traditionally turns to bad people when they get in trouble. There's still more on this story. We're not done. When we come back, Mike Gard and David Finzer will both continue to make fun of the Germans and talk about the European Central Bank. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio, and today it's Money Monday, so for my co-host for the second hour is Capital Conservator CFO Mike Gard, here to talk about economics, and we have been talking about the ECB Central Bank, Mr. Draghi, and now the response of the various German people through its media to his promises that are probably just hot air. I think we got down finally to a name you can pronounce, Mike, in German.
The Financial Times, Deutschland.
Very good.
Thank you. I want to thank you for pronouncing all the papers before that, though.
You're welcome.
Because Handelsblatt, is that right?
Yeah.
And Die Welt?
Die Welt.
Die Welt. And
yeah.
Wait, they got harder. The Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung?
Allgemeine Zeitung.
Whatever. And the Süddeutsche Zeitung?
Süddeutsche Zeitung.
Right. That's what I said, right? And Der Spiegel.
Der Spiegel.
Okay. Well, that was not too bad.
No.
I appreciate all the help, though. The Financial Times said, it would be nice if everyone could agree on the course communicated by Draghi on Thursday so as not to limit the psychological effect of the announcement. But there was opposition from Germany, once again from Bundesbank head Jens Weidmann, who apparently was the only one on the governing council to vote against Draghi's plan. Draghi isn't the only one who's disgruntled. It is indeed inadvisable to sacrifice ECB unanimity. The Bundesbank head is fostering distrust where the opposite is needed. So there are cracks in the armor. The ECB and the EU are not getting along in the member states. So that doesn't bode well for the 17 countries in the Eurozone or the 27 countries in the larger EU. who knows what's going to happen. Stay tuned. It gets exciting in the next 6 months, I think.
As someone said, there's profit in chaos.
Well, it just makes you wonder if those Mayans just didn't have it right. Maybe they were predicting the end of Europe in December 2012.
Well, I love living here in Europe, but, as an American, I think about Europe and all the things that it's given us. And, 3,000 years ago, the Greeks gave us democracy. 2,500 years ago, the Romans gave us a republic. In more recent times, though, they've given us such wonderful things as socialism, Marxism, fascism, communism, Hitlerism, Nazism, etc. Most of what Europe's given us in the last 2 centuries, I wish the Europeans would just take and shove.
Yeah, they can keep it.
They can keep it because their poisons actually were... Well, remember Mark Twain's book, Innocents Abroad?
Yes.
And, he was talking about France, of course, and I would not help you pronounce French names. In fact, French names I purposely mispronounce.
You mean France? Yeah, France.
Yes, that's right. But he was upset about something. He said, "It's un-American. It's un-English. It's French." There's a real mindset, a cultural mindset. I mean, cultural stereotypes are there for a reason.
It's true. I mean, as an American living in Europe for the first time in my life over the last couple of years, I've been exposed to that. And the Germans are very organized, and they like everything where it's supposed to be. The Italians really don't care, nor do the Greeks. I was during the break. I was talking about how America really needs to thank Europe for being so bad, because we wouldn't have nearly as many Americans if Europe was doing it right. Everybody wouldn't have left and gone to America to make things better over there.
Well, good point.
Yeah, we wouldn't have all the great Italian food we have. The great German sausages and beer. I mean, America is a nice blend of all the good things from Europe from people who didn't like Europe, so they left all the crap behind.
The problem is now America has adopted, though, the European catechism of compulsion, which is what Europe has mostly always been about. And whether it was the Papal States or Mussolini or the French Republic, historically it has been about compulsion. And the only country that really has ever had any contractual form of freedom, Bills of Rights, has been Great Britain,
right,
which was won by revolution.
Right. That's absolutely true, and you don't really know that until you feel it here. But there is a sense that the populace feels there are leaders, and then there's everybody else. And if you're not a leader, you just need to get in line with everybody else. Don't make waves. That's not right. As a friend of mine who lived in Australia for a period of time also said the same thing there, that it's like a field of wheat. And you dare not stick your head up above the field, or it'll get lopped off.
Right.
So everybody needs to be at the same level. I mean, it's very communist type thinking, but the feeling is that nobody's better than anybody else, and nobody deserves anything more than anybody else.
What's the big lie? That all people are equal.
Right.
Not that are created equal or endowed with equal rights, but that they are equal. And that's demonstrably untrue. So what they've done is they've built whole cultures and whole governments on fairy tales. And the biggest fairy tale of all, the emperor has no clothes, is the European Union and the Eurozone. I mean, this makes the emperor have no clothes look...
Well, it's one thing. I mean, it's kind of nice if you think about it. Wow, isn't that nice? Everybody has the same thing. Well, but when you really delve into it, it's horrible. I mean, who wants to have the same thing as everybody else? I mean, you don't like sports. I do. That way we don't stand in the same lines. If there's only one element of entertainment, sports, then we'd all have to stand in the same line. It'd be really crowded, and you have to know somebody to get in. But that's not the way it works. And a free market is the best because it allows people to see what the market wants and then provide it, and then enrich themselves by providing the market. It's a win-win situation.
Right, and of course our producer stands in the line at the bar, so we've got all three things covered. I promised if he didn't have to talk. I didn't promise we wouldn't pick up. No, I mean, that's the whole diversity. You know what's so funny is the left, which talks so much about diversity, really hates it.
That's right. Yeah, they want everybody to do the same thing. They like diversity of skin color, which could not be more stupid. I mean, who
Well,
cares?
it's only skin deep.
Right, exactly.
I mean, exactly.
It's like having a diversity of eye color. That doesn't matter. Racially, short people, tall people, black, white, red, yellow, green, whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters is a diversity of thought. And that's what the left really can't stomach. And that's what's going on right now in the United States with the whole Chick-fil-A thing. They cannot stand a diversity of thought. And there's freedom of thought as long as you agree with them. And as soon as you disagree with them, not only will they boycott your store, which I think is completely legitimate.
And they're right.
Absolutely. They can boycott the store all they want, but when they start to employ mayors and city councils to prevent the store owner from opening for no reason other than they disagree with a statement he made on an interview.
At the Baptist Press.
Right. Because of his religious beliefs. I mean, they're really walking on thin ice here.
Well, I think they object to the fact that he has religious beliefs.
At all.
Right.
That are Christian. I mean, if you had religious beliefs that are Muslim, they'll stand up for you and say, "Ooh, you can't discriminate."
Yes.
Right. Which I agree. You should discriminate against a company because they're Muslim either. Sure, absolutely.
I think a private individual though should be able to discriminate.
Well, of course, as I'm saying, they can boycott all they want, but it shouldn't be codified in law. There should be no religion test to open a business in a city.
Now, I mean, to me, one of the greatest, while we're talking about this, is in Great Britain that I can't fathom, and I didn't get to go to one while I was in England because I was afraid I'd do something to get arrested. But they have Sharia zones. Yeah. I mean, Sharia is just the opposite of common law. It stands against everything. 1,000 years of development of Anglo-American common law, Sharia stands against, and they have Sharia zones. I mean, that makes California's no scent zoning areas look like a joke. Of course, California mostly is a joke, but I mean, this is just, it's evil.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. I mean, if you were walking through a Sharia zone and let's say you did something that they didn't like, I don't know that much about Sharia law, so just pick a thing. As a foreigner,
like wearing my crucifix out openly.
Yeah. All right, so you didn't even know, right? It's a Sharia zone. I mean, how are you supposed to know?
Well, they have signs that say you're entering a Sharia zone.
But you don't even know what that means. Are you obligated to know what that means? Are you protected by the British Constitution? Are you protected by British law?
Well, Britain doesn't have a written constitution, so I don't know.
Well, you use the term British Constitution all the time.
I mean,
but, yes.
Right. Considering they just arrested a guy for Twitter. For comments on Twitter.
Yes, I was just wondering, as a foreigner, a non-British citizen, if you would have the protection of the British police, the British court system.
I do not know, but somehow I have a feeling not, because Britain, unfortunately, has become very, very, very PC.
Well, you might as well just go to Egypt then for a holiday.
Right. And with that, we've now come to another hour. Remember, you only have 3 choices left. Give in and live like a serf. Fight back, first in November, and then when you can't stand it any longer in a civil war, which you'll almost certainly lose, or get out and take with you the candle of freedom so that somewhere, somehow, someday soon, with God's help, Ronald Reagan's shining city on a hill will be reborn. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies.